I tell you what, let me bring it to life for you a little bit. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to prepare. And then what I'll do is I'll choose 3 of you to come up here where I am in turn and speak for 3 minutes about anything that's going on in your company. Okay, so something pretty familiar to you. So you've got, I'll actually put a countdown clock on the screen for you so you know when the time's up. So you've 30 seconds to prepare, and then I will choose which 3 of you will come out here. Oh, by the way, you can see I have a colleague of mine at the door in case you have any ideas. Ten more seconds to go. All right. So let's see who we're going to have. So how many of you are sitting there hoping or praying that I'm not going to choose you? You might as well be honest, because it's very obvious to me who you are. Because there's 2 things that I can see. One is that the breathing has gone shallow in some of you. Because we all know that if you hold your breath, you become invisible, don't you? And then the other thing that was even more graphic to me was the change in eye contact. The majority of you had found something really interesting on the floor. 1 or 2 of you were giving me better eye contact than at any stage today. It was as if you were saying, yeah, I can do this. You move on, choose somebody else. We'll bluff our way out of this, yeah? What were you experiencing? What do we call it? Interference, yeah? I'd call it fear. Yeah, we could even spell it that way, couldn't we? What are you afraid of? I'll make an educated guess. You're afraid of coming up here and doing your imitation of a goldfish. Because you'd go, bah, blah, blah, yeah? And then you judge yourself. You judge, oh, this is embarrassing. This isn't going very well. And then you see people in the audience, their eyes roll up, don't they? And they whisper to each other. And you judge that they must be judging you. And you're probably right. And you have this snowball of judgment that's being created. And it has a very powerful effect on you because it'll tighten you so much. You have to go just to get your voice out, don't you? And then your hands and your arms have a life of their own once you stand up in front of people. And the words don't connect with your brain anymore, do they? And I'd put every dollar in my wallet on this bet with you, that when you're 1-to-1 with your folks back at your company, you daily bore them to death for a lot more than 3 minutes with your opinions about what's going on in your company. You're perfectly capable of doing this, but interference will shut you down. Interference shuts anybody down. Interference even shuts, we've now learned, even shuts Tiger Woods down, doesn't it? So what happens is you get these thoughts going around in your head like, how can I leave before he gets to the 30 seconds, yeah? Or I wish I'd never come, I've never been any good at this. Oh, he's joking, he won't really do it. That kind of stuff is what goes on in anybody's mind. It'll show up in the rest of our lives on occasions where if we're called in by our boss's boss's boss for an unscheduled meeting, that activates what in psychology they call the internal dialogue, isn't it? What's this about? Am I in trouble? For you golfers, it gets going on the first tee, doesn't it? Where you start worrying about everybody that you think is watching you. Isn't that right, golfers? How arrogant can you be, by the way, to think that everybody's watching you? It shows up when we're trying to have those really tough coaching conversations. You know, the one with a 20-year veteran who's struggling to deal with change, but has always been, has been loyal, but is just can't cope anymore. Or your teenager when you're trying to have them raise their grades to get to a better college, or clean up their bedroom, yeah, because it looks like a health risk. So those kind of things in our life trigger this phenomena of interference. So we've got interference stops people from getting stuff done. And at the most basic level, getting stuff done to me shows up as what I call Sudoku. Let me tell you how that's an acronym. I'll tease it out for you in a moment. I was, about 3 years ago, spending a day with the 34 leaders of a software company. And these folks had come from around the world for their annual retreat. And I was talking to them about performance and coaching. And I had this whole conversation with them about my Welsh point of view on things. And if you don't know the Welsh, I'll tell you there's 3 things you probably should know about them. We're a very simple people. We're kind of nuts and bolts approach to life. We're quite a skeptical people. We don't take much at face value, and we can be a very sarcastic people. So I was saying to them, with that view on life, with this kind of simplicity and this skepticism, if I had to boil all this leadership and management stuff that we talk about down to nuts and bolts, it boils down to 3 things to me. I want to work with people who say what they'll do, who, when they've said what they'll done, they then do what they say. And once they've done that, they go back and say what they're going to do next. And once, now in real life, sometimes we say what we'll do, but we can't do it. Stuff happens. And if that happens, then I want folks who will communicate that they can't do what they say, and then go back and say what they'll do again, redo what they say they'll do. Hence this acronym Sudoku, not the numbers game that I'm sure some of you like to play. So, not that that's everything to do with performance, but I said, if I could work with people who consistently do that, to me, that would have a big impact on performance. And when I looked around this group, there were a lot of nodding. Well, maybe I should ask you, would you want to work with people that do that? Yeah, okay, so we've got the same number of nodding heads here. So I then asked them, how many of you think that that's what you do? That you say what you'll do, and you do what you say, and you communicate when you can't. So you're not going to be surprised to learn that 34 people put their hand up. Everybody in the room put their hand up. And then I asked them, how many of you have witnessed your colleagues in this room more than occasionally not doing that? And 30 hands went up. And then there was this really awkward silence as they realized the implication of this is that there's a gap between what they thought they did and what they actually did. And that gap, I believe, is what we coaches, and I believe everybody is a coach, whether a leader, whether we're a manager, whether we're a parent, it doesn't matter, there's always a role in our lives where we're trying to help somebody. That's the gap that we wrestle with most of the time. Because I don't believe people are malicious in non-performance. I believe they don't even know there's a gap between what they think they do and what they actually do. And it's also, by the way, a gap that we have as coaches, where what we think we do and what we actually do is frequently very different. And how you find out about that, by the way, is you interview the people that you coach and you ask them about your coaching, which is not the most comfortable experience to have, but it's an enlightening one. So I would say Sudoku lies at the heart of all those other gaps we were talking about earlier. It's the gap that probably drives you crazy about other people, doesn't it? That's why we have these water cooler conversations. And I'm going to go here. It's the gap that drives them crazy about you, because they're having those water cooler conversations about you as well. Sudoku to me is the simplest form of accountability. If you can't say what you'll do what you say, and then communicate about it if you can't do what you say, not even McDonald's is going to employ you. It's a real basic form or a basic way to know about what accountability is about. And by the way, arguably it's the thing, in my experience, that managers and supervisors struggle with the most. This whole notion of how do you help people be accountable. Sometimes the word that's used with it is responsible as well.